The Humble Beginnings. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in the rugged wilderness of Hardin County, Kentucky. His family was poor, struggling to survive on the land they farmed. His father, Thomas Lincoln, a stubborn and hard-working man, moved his family several times in search of a better life. Despite the constant upheaval, the young Lincoln's spirit remained unbroken. The cabin walls may have been sparse, but his thirst for knowledge was boundless. Lincoln's early life was marred by hardship. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, passed away when he was just 9 years old, a blow that devastated him. Nancy had been a gentle and encouraging presence, nurturing his early curiosity and desire to learn. Her death left a void, but it also ignited in young Abe a fierce determination to shape his own future, even in the face of adversity. After his mother's death, Thomas remarried, and the new stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, proved to be a significant figure in Lincoln's life. Though she was not his birth mother, Sarah encouraged Abe's love for books and learning, often sharing her own educational materials with him. It was under her guidance that Lincoln developed the self-discipline that would later serve him as both a lawyer and a president. As a child, Lincoln was known for his insatiable hunger for knowledge, even though formal schooling was scarce. The schools he attended were rudimentary at best, sporadic lessons, few textbooks, and often taught by teachers with little education themselves. But Lincoln was different. Even with such limited access, he consumed every book he could get his hands on. The Bible, works on law, history, and stories that stretched his imagination. He would read by firelight, hunched over pages in a dimly lit cabin, determined to improve his mind. The young boy's resilience, however, extended beyond books. Lincoln's physical labor on the family farm taught him the values of hard work and perseverance. His hands were rough and calloused by the time he was a teenager, yet his mind continued to soar. It was during these years, working the land by day and reading by night, that Lincoln's character began to take shape. He became known for his honesty, refusing to cheat in business, even when it might have benefited him. A story from his early years illustrates this. When Lincoln was tasked with delivering goods to a customer, he realized he had miscalculated the price and owed a small amount of money. Without hesitation, he walked miles to return the extra change. This simple act, though small, was a glimpse into the man he would become, one who would always seek to do right, even when no one was watching. Lincoln's early struggles with poverty and loss did not embitter him. Instead, they forged in him a deep understanding of human hardship and a profound sense of empathy. It was in the quiet solitude of the Indiana woods, in the dust of the frontier, that the foundations of the man who would lead a nation were laid. Honest Abe was not born in wealth, but in the heart of adversity, where his resolve was strengthened and his character solidified. This chapter of Lincoln's life may have been quiet and humble, but it was marked by the seeds of greatness. His relentless pursuit of knowledge, his integrity in every action, and his ability to rise above personal tragedy set the stage for a future that would change the world. His journey was only just beginning, and the path ahead, though uncertain, would soon reveal the man who would lead America through its darkest hours. Rise to politics. Abraham Lincoln's journey into politics began not with grand aspirations, but with a quiet desire to serve and understand the world around him. As a young man, he worked a variety of jobs: farm laborer, store clerk, surveyor, and eventually a lawyer. Each role brought him into contact with people from all walks of life. From the poor farmers he worked alongside to the well-off citizens he encountered as a lawyer in Springfield, Illinois. These experiences shaped his worldview, one rooted in fairness, justice, and a deep commitment to equality. It was his work as a self-taught lawyer that first brought him into the public eye. Lincoln's legal career was built on a reputation of honesty and integrity. He gained clients not through flashy advertisements or connections, but through word of mouth. Known for his sharp mind and fair dealings, Lincoln earned the respect of both colleagues and clients. One of his most notable traits was his ability to argue cases with clarity and honesty, even when it wasn't in his favor. His straightforward approach, coupled with his natural charisma, made him a compelling presence in the courtroom and beyond. But Lincoln's ambitions were never confined to the courtroom. His heart was always drawn to the political sphere. In 1834, he was elected to the Illinois state legislature as a member of the Whig Party, where he quickly gained a reputation for his sharp intellect and moral convictions. It was here that Lincoln first began to take a public stand on issues that would define his political career, especially his opposition to slavery. Though he did not yet advocate for immediate abolition, Lincoln firmly believed that slavery should not be allowed to expand into new territories. By 1846, Lincoln was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. His time in Washington, however, was brief and unremarkable. Disillusioned by the politics of the time, he returned to Illinois, where he resumed his law practice and took a step back from the political stage. But his passion for justice never wavered, and in 1854, the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act reignited his political fire. The act allowed for the expansion of slavery into new territories, and it deeply disturbed Lincoln. His moral compass once again guided him into the political arena, where he began to speak out against the injustice of slavery's expansion. In 1858, Lincoln entered into what would become one of the most famous political contests in American history, the Illinois Senate race against Stephen A. Douglas. The Lincoln-Douglas debates, as they would come to be known, were not just about the future of Illinois. They were about the future of the nation. Lincoln's stand on slavery was clear. He believed it was morally wrong and that it should not spread into new territories. Douglas, a political powerhouse, argued for popular sovereignty, the idea that each territory should decide for itself whether to allow slavery. The debates were fierce, but Lincoln's unwavering principles and clear logic won the respect of many, even though he ultimately lost the Senate seat. Despite his loss, the Lincoln-Douglas debates had elevated his political profile. He became a national figure, admired for his integrity and his ability to speak plainly about complex issues. His honest approach to the issues of the day, combined with his deep sense of right and wrong, positioned him as the perfect candidate for a higher office. In 1860, Lincoln's moment arrived. His moral clarity, coupled with the nation's growing divisions over slavery, led to his election as the 16th President of the United States. As he prepared to take office, Lincoln knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready. He had always believed in the power of honesty and hard work, and now he would need both as he steered the nation through its most trying time. The presidency and the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln's presidency began at a moment of deep national division. Elected in 1860, he took office at a time when the United States was on the brink of collapse. The Southern states, fearing the loss of their way of life with the growing abolitionist movement, began to secede from the Union. By the time Lincoln was inaugurated, 7 states had already left the Union, and tensions were rising. The central conflict was clear. Lincoln's commitment to preserving the Union would clash with the Southern states' desire for independence. What was less clear was how this would unfold. Lincoln knew the stakes. The Civil War would test not only his leadership, but the very ideals upon which the nation was founded. His stance on slavery was firm. While his primary goal was to preserve the Union, he also recognized the moral imperative to end slavery, which had long been the cornerstone of the South's economy. He was a man who understood that history would judge him not just by his ability to navigate political waters, but by his ability to act according to his principles. In his first year as president, the nation descended into war. The Confederacy, led by President Jefferson Davis, refused to abide by the Union's authority, and the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter in April 1861. Lincoln responded quickly, calling for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. The war, however, would be longer and more brutal than anyone had anticipated. For 4 long years, the nation would be torn apart, and Lincoln would have to make decisions that would weigh heavily on his soul. As commander-in-chief, Lincoln faced not only military challenges but internal strife within his own cabinet. Some of his advisors, including Secretary of State William Seward, were more radical in their views on slavery and the war, while others, like General George McClellan, were hesitant to fully commit to the aggressive tactics Lincoln knew were necessary. Yet, through it all, Lincoln remained resolute. He navigated the delicate balance between military strategy and moral conviction, always striving to end the war while preserving the Union. One of Lincoln's most significant acts came in 1863 with the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. Though not a sweeping abolition of slavery, the proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territories were to be set free. It was a bold move, both politically and morally, and it irrevocably linked the war to the cause of abolition. Lincoln's moral clarity in the face of such opposition reinforced his belief that the Union could not survive half slave and half free. The proclamation would alter the course of the war and the future of the nation. But Lincoln's path was not without personal cost. As the war raged on, so did the toll on Lincoln's body and soul. He faced endless criticism from the press, the public, and even members of his own party. His decisions, often unpopular, brought with them not just political fallout, but the weight of the countless lives lost on the battlefield. The death of his beloved son, Willie, in 1862, further deepened his despair, yet it also strengthened his resolve. Lincoln's leadership was driven not by the desire for personal gain, but by an unwavering commitment to his vision of a united and just America. The Gettysburg Address, delivered in 1863, encapsulated Lincoln's vision for the country. In just 272 words, he redefined the meaning of the Civil War and reaffirmed the nation's commitment to liberty and equality. His words resonated not only with those fighting in the war, but with future generations, establishing him as one of the greatest leaders in American history. Lincoln's fight was far from over, but in that moment, the nation found a moral leader whose vision would ultimately bring the Union back together. The war continued, but with each passing year, Lincoln's resolve grew stronger. He knew that his place in history would depend on his ability to guide the nation through this darkest of times. The path forward was uncertain, but Lincoln's commitment to the Union and to freedom remained unwavering. The legacy of Honest Abe. As the Civil War came to a close, Abraham Lincoln faced a nation that was broken, yet beginning to heal. The Confederacy had surrendered in April 1865, and the Union was preserved. But the victory was bittersweet. Lincoln had seen the death of over 600,000 Americans, brothers, fathers, and sons, and his personal losses were no less painful. His young son, Willie, had died years earlier, and the weight of grief and exhaustion had begun to show on the president's face. Yet, amid the